In the year 2016, Kobold Press released their original monster book, the Tome of Beasts. Now this is a book of over 400 monsters that you could use in your 5th edition game. Now here it is, the year 2023, and they have revised the Tome of Beasts, and now the Tome of Beasts 1 is available. Hey folks, Wally DM here, and today we're going to take a look at Kobold Press's Tome of Beasts 1, the 2023 revised edition. Now in this video we're going to discuss some of the features and what has changed from the original to today's version. We're going to compare some of the monsters so we can take a look at those revisions. We're going to take a look at some of the new artwork that is available in the book, and in addition to that we're going to take a look at some of the new monsters that are available in the book. And then finally we're going to discuss the price of the book and whether or not this is a book that you should buy and put into your collection. But to skip ahead just a little bit, if you do not already own the original Tome of Beasts, then this is definitely a no-brainer. The Tome of Beasts 1 is perfect and a fantastic edition for any game master or dungeon master that's running a 5th edition game, or for Tales of the Valiant. This is an amazing book. But if you already own the original Tome of Beasts and you're wondering if you should pick up this new revised copy, or if you just want to see what some of the changes are, then be sure to stick around because we're going to dive right in. So let's begin by taking a look at what has changed for the Tome of Beasts 1 2023 edition. Now, I am referencing an article that was published on June 27th, and this is on Kobold Press's website, so I'll put a link in the description below. But the main fact is it says that the bulk of the changes were to monster statistics and game rules, clarifying muddy rules, reworking traits and actions that didn't work as intended, removing excess or uninteresting features, and adding new flavorful features. Now this article also links a video where they discuss where they removed a lot of the innate spell casting and instead replaced that with monster-like abilities. What I mean by that is perhaps a monster, and we're going to look at that monster here in a little bit, had an ability that gave them innate spell casting and they could cast a darkness spell. Well, as a game master you would have to flip through your spell book, your player's handbook, what have you, and see how darkness works. But now they've reworked that so that it's an action of that monster, and it's got a unique name or ability for that darkness spell. It's still the darkness spell in general, but now it's an ability instead of a spell. Now, they didn't eliminate all of the spells. There are still some monsters, like the Hag, for example, that's going to have an innate spell casting ability with a spell list, but now the spells are more of a support role for that monster, as everything's been revised in order for it to work better for the game master and make it easier to understand how these monsters are going to work in combat. Now, this article is also going to go through and give us a list of new monsters, new-ish monsters, which means that they added a few stat blocks for things that were missing, removed monsters because there is a very short list of monsters that no longer made sense to be in the Tome of Beasts, and there's the list of monsters with new artwork. So let's begin by taking a look and comparing some of the monsters from the original Tome of Beasts to Tome of Beasts 1. So the list that I have prepared for you is, first I want to show you how they moved the spell casting. So we're going to take a look at the Owl Harpy, and we're going to take a look at one of the Hags, and then we're going to take a look at 3 of my favorite monsters from the books, or at least the monsters that I have ran in my game, and I'll even give you a little bit of backstory on to how I use them. So let's dig right in, and let's start with the Owl Harpy. So here is our side-by-side comparison of the Owl Harpy. Now the original 2016 is going to be on the left, and the new Tome of Beasts 1 2023 edition is going to be on the right. Now most of the stat block and the monster is the same. As we can see, we've got a short introduction, and we have a little bit of the lore and the background as far as the Owl Harpy is concerned. But what I really want to focus on is the stat block and the abilities of this monster. Now the stat block itself really didn't undergo too much of a difference between the original and the new one. The new Owl Harpy has a charisma of 18 as opposed to 14. The stealth is now simply a +9 as opposed to a +6 and then a +9 while flying, so they simplified that. And then you can now see our proficiency bonus of +3 in the stat block. So overall, compared to a lot of the other monsters in the book, the stat block didn't undergo any major changes. However, as we move on to the abilities, in the original version, you're going to see that the Owl Harpy had the dissonance ability, which means the Owl Harpy cannot use its blind sight while deafened. And then you look over on the right side, which is the newer version, we have hypersensitive hearing. The Owl Harpy has advantage on wisdom perception checks that rely on hearing, and it can't use its blind sight while deafened. So the dissonance ability has evolved into hypersensitive hearing. The new version also has quiet wings. The Owl Harpy has advantage on dexterity stealth checks made to hide while flying, so added an ability that made sense for this creature. Now, what I really want to focus on is if we look back on the left side of your screen, you see innate spellcasting. The Owl Harpy's innate spellcasting ability is Charisma, and the Owl Harpy can innately cast the following spells requiring no material components, and that is 3 times per day, Darkness. So as a game master or a dungeon master, you would have to flip through your player's handbook or what have you and find the Darkness spell in order to get all the details on how that works. But now on the new version and the 2023 revised Tome of Beasts 1, the Owl Harpy's actions are multi-attack, claw, talon, sleeping song, and then we have an ability called Hovering Darkness, and it can be used 3 times per day, just like our spell Darkness could be. While flying, the Owl Harpy shakes a fine magical dander from her wings, and a 15-foot radius of magical darkness extends out from her, moves with her, and spreads around corners. The darkness lasts as long as the Owl Harpy flies and maintains concentration, up to 10 minutes, as if concentrating on a spell. Darkness can't penetrate the darkness, and no natural light can illuminate it. If any of the darkness overlaps with an area of light created by a spell at 2nd level or lower, the spell creating the light is dispelled. So what I really love about this Hovering Darkness is it has the flavor for the Owl Harpy. I can visualize the Owl Harpy shaking her wings, and this dander just covers an area and then everything turns dark. But more or less, it is the Darkness spell. It's just spelled out, so when a game master reads through there, the game master doesn't have to go look in another book to see what Darkness does. It's all right there, and I absolutely love this process of thinking, having everything on the same page, so when the game master goes to run this monster, they don't have to go to other books to look up to see what something does. So I love this process. Now let's move on and take a look at a hag. So this is the Red Hag. Now, we're just primarily going to focus on how the innate spellcasting works, although there are a few differences between the original Red Hag and today's Red Hag. But let's zoom in on the abilities. So as you can see here on the left is the original. We have 3 abilities. We have Amphibious, Magical Resistance, and Blood Sense. And on the right is the new one. We still have Amphibious, Blood Sense, and Magic Resistance. But as you can see here on the left with the original, we have Spellcasting, and we have this entire block that says the Hag is an 8th level spellcaster and lists all the cantrips at will, 1st level spells, and gives 4 spell slots, 2nd level spells with 3 slots, 3rd level spells, 4th level spells with the spell slots and all the spells. Now you're not seeing that on the right side with the revised Red Hag, but if we scroll down here into the actions of the Red Hag, we're going to see at the very bottom is spellcasting. The Red Hag casts one of the following spells requiring no material components and using wisdom as a spellcasting ability. At will, we've got Animal Friendship, Druidcraft, and Entangle. 3 times per day they can cast Cure Wounds, Dispel Magic, Lesser Restoration, and once per day, Control Water, Freedom of Movement. Now the spell list is a lot shorter, and as a game master, I really appreciate that. I'm a little bit overwhelmed with all of the spells that are listed in the original version, but some of the important spells that did make sense to the Hag that aren't included under spellcasting has been converted to abilities. So if we take a look on the left side, we have 1st level spells, we have Speak with Animals, and under the normal abilities for the Red Hag, under the new revised version, we have Speak with Beasts. The Red Hag can communicate with beasts as if they shared a language. There's no spellcasting required. They can just speak with beasts. It doesn't require an action to cast the spell. Now, the original Red Hag, it had claw attacks and an ability called Siphoning Aura. Now, in the new version, we have multi-attack with our claw. We have Siphon Blood, which I'm assuming is very close to Siphoning Aura. A little bit of changes there. Our spell casting, and then we also get an ability called Blood Bolt. And Bloodbolt is simply a ranged spell attack that we could use as an action for the hag. So looking at the new version of the Red Hag as opposed to the other version, especially with regards to spells, everything is simplified for the Game Master, and we get to focus on those abilities that the Red Hag has. Now, that's not to say that if you want to have other abilities for your hags with regards to spells or something along those lines, as a Game Master, you're always free to homebrew. So if something makes sense for you with a creature such as a hag that you're running and you want to include certain spells, you can always do that. But having a simplified version so that we can open up our book, take a look, so like, yes, this red hag looks cool, we can pinpoint a few abilities, a few spells, and we're good to go. Now, I think it'd be fun to take a look at a few more monsters and compare the differences between the original version and the Tome of Beasts 1 2023 edition. And one of my favorite monsters that I've used several times is the Oculo Swarm. Now, the Oculo Swarm was actually a Pathfinder monster. That's when I first encountered this, and I just thought it was fascinating that this large swarm of eyeballs could just wreak so much havoc on a party or an individual. And I've used this in my 5th edition game with regards to Waterdeep Dragon Heist. In Dragon Heist, I would run the Spring campaign, which features a beholder, and a beholder is well known for eyes. So I wanted the whole campaign to be about eyes, and the Oculo Swarm filled that role perfectly. In fact, I would just have it show up randomly. In the beginning, when they first encountered the Oculo Swarm, it was smaller, and as the campaign progressed, it got larger and larger. So every time they encountered the Oculo Swarm, it was bigger and a lot tougher to fight. Now, first taking a look at the Oculo Swarm stat block, I can see right away that the hit points have been significantly decreased. It used to be an average of 110, now it's only 82. And the Constitution's even taken a little bit of a dip. And I think that's because they may have made this a little bit stronger, as we're going to see here in one of the abilities. So let's check out the abilities. And this is a swarm, so this monster can occupy a space. Now, in the original Tome of Beasts, the Oculo Swarm had 2 actions. It had the eye extraction and the gaze. Now, this is a lot where Kobold Press decided, hey, we need to simplify some things, and some things that make sense, because the eye extraction was basically any creature within the swarm or in the swarm space had to make a Constitution saving throw. And if they failed that Constitution saving throw, the first time they failed it, their eyes would start to strain and they would become temporarily blind. However, on that next turn, if they were still within that area, they would have to make another Constitution save, and if they failed that one, then their eyes would pop out and join the swarm, and they would be permanently damaged. They would be permanently blind as their eyes just join the Oculo Swarm. So now the 2023 version, we have multi-attack, and that is where the Oculo Swarm is actually going to make 2 extract eye attacks. And that makes a lot more sense, just because as an action, the Oculo Swarm wasn't really doing anything. It was just in a space, and any monster in that space would have had to make the saving throw. Now the Oculo Swarm is actually making 2 extract eye attacks. So if both of these attacks hit a creature, and this is a melee weapon attack, it's going to be +7 to hit, and it is going to do 18 points of piercing damage. That's something that the Oculo Swarm didn't do before. It didn't do any damage. It just was there to pluck your eyes out, which was just absolutely horrifying. It's still horrifying, which is probably why the hit point decreased, because dungeon masters or game masters are going to want their players to deal away with this monster as soon as possible, because it can get fairly grotesque when the eye sockets start to empty. That's for sure. I don't know where I'm going with this. Let's reset here. So with the Oculo Swarm, it has these 2 attacks. It's going to be able to do this piercing damage, and if both extract eye attacks hits, then that character is going to need to make a DC 13 strength saving throw, or the swarm is going to remove one of its eyes. So if your character is hit by both, it's very similar to a grapple. Instead of being grappled, you just lose an eyeball, and that's absolutely devastating. And I do like how in the 2023 version they actually give you a way to put your eye back in. It seems It seems really like a long shot, but at least they gave you away. It says if the target's eye is recovered from the defeated swarm, it can be reattached with a successful DC 12 Wisdom Medicine check, provided that the eye is reattached within 1 hour of the target losing the eye. So, wow. I mean, I love the changes. I really do. I think this is a fantastic, already on a good creature. Again, if you haven't run the Oculo Swarm, I highly encourage you to do so. But this new version, it does damage. In the old version, it didn't do damage. It either plucked your eye out. I take that back. It did cause a D8 of piercing damage if you lost your eyes. But this new one, it's a lot more devastating. That is a lot more devastating. We also have the gaze attack. Now this is on a recharge 5 to 6. In the old version, it would either be a confusion effect or a hold person effect that would last a D4 round, and you got a saving throw to be able to do that. And it was whoever was in the occupied space or the same space as the Oculo Swarm. And Oculo Swarm is a large monster too, so it would occupy, I think, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but a 10-foot radius for that. So it didn't change much as far as the area, because in the disorienting gaze in the new version, we have any creature within 10 feet of the Oculo Swarm is going to need to make a DC 13 Charisma save. That's one easier than the older version. And then on a failure, they're going to take 6d6 of psychic damage and be disoriented until the end of the next turn. So that is a lot more devastating than just being confused or paralyzed. Now you're going to take all of this damage and you're going to be disoriented. So if you fail that save, you're going to be incapacitated, and on your next turn, you're going to move in a random direction. So the new form of the Oculo Swarm, I can't wait to use it again. I would love to run Dragon Heist again and bring back the Oculo Swarm, a fantastic monster. But there's a perfect sampling of how these monsters are different in the span of 7 years. Next, let's take a look at the Miremal. Now, this is a small fey creature that lives in the swamp, and it did have minimal changes to it from the original version of Tome of Beasts to the current 2023 version, but this is actually a monster that I've ran before, so I'd like to just take a look at it with you. Now, when I ran this, it was in a puzzle one-shot adventure, and a Miremal likes to lead unwary travelers down a dangerous path, whether there be ambushes or traps or things of that nature that are in store for the party. And all 3 times that I ran this one-shot puzzle adventure, 100% of the time they followed the Miremal. And the Miremal is actually a servant of hags and black dragons, but in this case I had a moderated hydra. It was like a cross between a hydra and a black dragon. So it had 5 heads, but it spewed acid breath, so it was like a black dragon hydra mix. And that's what the Miremal was trying to do, is lead the adventurers towards this dangerous path to meet this hydra. Now, most of the stat block, aside from a 1-point difference in armor class, is basically the same as the original. But just to show you just some of the subtle changes that were made, in the original Tome of Beasts, we can see that this ability called Muddled Escape could be used once per day as a reaction. Now, the Muddled Escape is basically just something that they can do. They don't have to use an action or a reaction. And it recharges after a short or long rest. So if the Miremal takes 7 damage or less, that would reduce it to 0 hit points. It is reduced to 1 hit point instead and becomes a puddle of filthy swamp water. At the start of the Miremal's next turn, it can move up to 15 feet as a puddle. Then it returns to normal form. So it makes a lot more sense in the newer edition that it's just an ability that can happen if its hit points are reduced to 0. No need for it to be a reaction. So the Miremal is a good example of some of the changes that were made to Tome of Beasts so that the actions were to flow a lot better. It made a lot of sense to make that reaction just something that the Miremal could do. And not only that, I wanted to show this creature off because I think they're a lot of fun. If you are ever in a swamp environment and you need to lead a party to a dangerous area, throw a few Miremals in there and have a nice little role-play encounter and see what happens. Now this next monster is a fascinating one for me. I ran this in a puzzle adventure where the characters would have to get in an aquarium, so they would be submerged in the water, and then they had to put a pair of shark glasses on and look through the aquarium glass while in the water at a wall to be able to get a cipher or to get a clue to solve the puzzle. But while they're doing that, there's all of these shark jaws that are laying about the floor, and they animate and come to life, and that was the Sharkjaw Skeleton. Now, this is a very simple modification from the original to the new one, which it probably makes sense because this was also a Pathfinder monster. This was in one of the Pathfinder books that I remember from the early 2010s, probably the 2011 area. But the only ability that I seen that was a big change on this is the Devouring Embrace. Now, in the original version, there was a multi-attack, and if the bite hit, then a monster would be grappled, but on attacks afterwards, the Sharkjaw Skeleton would have advantage, but they weren't automatic hits. Not only that, but the Sharkjaw Skeleton was a large monster, and the target could be large, which really didn't make sense to me. I always feel like grappling, especially with like a swallow type ability, would have to be a size smaller than that monster or even smaller than that. So it looks to be fixed in the new version where it says the Sharkjaw Skeleton devours a medium or smaller creature. Again, this is a large monster, so now it can only devour medium or smaller. They're going to be grappled, and the target is going to take 2d6 piercing damage at the start of the skeleton's turn. So it doesn't have to make any more attack rolls with that bite attack. So that makes a lot of sense to me, because if you have a character and it's getting chomped down by this jaw of a shark, the skeleton jaw, it doesn't need to make an attack roll anymore. It has you in the jaws. It's just embracing and piercing you further while it's got you there until it tries to snap you in half, I guess. I guess that's something that could happen. Hopefully your friends can get you out of this grapple, because that could be terrifying. But yeah, that's the Sharkjaw Skeleton. A fun monster to run, and it doesn't even need to be in water. It could be by water or maybe in a museum somewhere. So definitely give that one a try. Now, the final monster I want to show, just because it's become a favorite by many from the original Tome of Beasts, is the Alehouse Drake. Now, I first encountered this monster in the Book of Drakes. This is a 2011 Kobold Press publication for Pathfinder. And in fact, this whole book is a hidden gem. The Book of Drakes, it's an amazing book. Highly recommend it. But that's when I first seen the Alehouse Drake. Now, on the left side again, we have the original. On the right, we have the revised 2023 edition. And once again, you can see that the Alehouse Drake actually had a plethora of spells. We had a bunch of different innate spellcasting abilities, but here again on the right, we don't have that many. And once again, I do really enjoy that, simplifying the monsters, looking through all those spells and trying to decide that. Just give the monster abilities, learn those abilities, and it's so much easier for the game master to run. So I really like this direction. With that in mind, the important spells are going to be drawn out and formed into those abilities. So like the Vicious Mockery here, I could see an Alehouse Drake vicious mockering somebody, be like, especially those that have had a few too many. And we can see this over here in Mocking Chortle. So, but instead of it being a saving throw for Vicious Mockery, we have a ranged spell attack that's going to do psychic damage for Mocking Chortle. And then the final big thing that I can see the difference is that the breath weapon was just this burp of a 15-foot cone of intoxicating gas that would poison a creature and stun them. Now we have the choice. We can either do a dazing breath, which is going to make a creature indifferent, which kind of encompasses that spell Calm Emotions. And that breath weapon is also going to incapacitate. And then we have intoxicating breath, which is going to cause poison damage and the poison condition. So I really like what they did with the Alehouse Drake. It seems a lot more easier to run, and those are the monsters that I enjoy and the monsters that I like from the book. Leave a comment below. Are there other monsters that you're interested in seeing the original version compared to the new one? Now, before we cover the new monsters that you're going to find in Tome of Beasts 1, the 2023 revision, let's just do a quick montage and take a look at all of the new art. And don't forget that on the left is the original and on the right is the revised. So now let's do a brief introduction of some of the new monsters that you're going to find in the revised 2023 edition of the Tome of Beasts 1. The first one is the this big, huge worm. This is a gigantic worm that travels the bowels of the earth, and it's going to come up and just absolutely crush. This challenge rating 12 monster has 184 hit points, has an aura that costs poison damage, and it's just going to slam and smash. Next up is the Arcs. This is an insectoid type of a fiend. This is actually a large monster. The Arcs is a challenge rating 9 monster with 171 hit points. It's immune to effects that would alter its form. It has a magical resistance. It has a spiky hide. Not only that, but it can put a large wall into place. So an interesting fiendish type of a monster that looks like a bug that can put out a wall. I have no idea what's going on here, but it looks really cool. The next monster is an Ashwalker. Now this is a medium undead, and this undead was created by, they met their demise from a dragon's breath. So this monster is a challenge rating 1, but they have a lot of abilities. They have 31 hit points. They have a Breathborn and a Burst of Breath ability. The Breathborn gives them immunity to whatever damage type that they met their demise to. So if they're killed by a black dragon, then they would be immune to acid. If they're killed by a brass dragon, they'd be immune to fire. They also have a Burst of Breath ability, so if someone hits them with a melee attack or touches them, they're going to take a d6 of whatever damage that they were killed by. So again, like acid damage if their demise was met by a black dragon and so forth. A Last Breath ability that says if they're reduced to 0, then they're going to come back to 1. They also have a Draconic Breath on a recharge of 6 where they can exhale some elemental energy in a 15-foot cone. So for a challenge rating 1 monster that's undead, this creature that was killed by a dragon's breath weapon is going to be a fierce monster to deal with. Next up is the Caustic Charger. This is a huge monstrosity that looks like some type of maybe a buffalo or an elephant type creature with an anteater like tongue. It's got 6 legs. And are those tentacles? Those are tentacles with tentacles. Tentacles. It has a Straddler ability, which I guess they would straddle someone. A Slurp ability. They have a tentacle ability. This is way out there. This is wow. That's the Caustic Charger. This is a slurping tentacle anteater ram elephant big ass beast. And here we go with another fun name to pronounce, the Citrullus, a humble melon plant. Interestingly enough, the artwork is fantastic. That looks really, really cool. This is a medium plant. It's going to be unaligned. Has 85 hit points. It's a challenge rating 3. It has a false appearance so that if it's motionless, it's indistinguishable from any normal melon plant, like with all the other melon plants that we've encountered in our adventures. That's hilarious. It has a gush ability, a bile spray that's on a recharge, and has a bonus action. We can do some creepy seedlings. The seeds in the sticky juice grow viney tendrils and drag each creature restrained by bile spray and gush up to 25 feet straight towards the Citrullus. Man, time to make some orange juice here. Oh my goodness. This monster is pretty cool. And hey, if melon citrus plants aren't your thing, how about the Neko Hydra? Holy smokes, a huge undead, a Hydra with human-like heads. This thing is absolutely terrifying. This oh my goodness. 207 hit points, a challenge rating 9 monster. It has multiple heads that are immune to all types of different conditions, advantage on all types of different saving throws. And this thing is absolutely, this is nightmarish. The Necro Hydra, the Hydra undead. Absolutely. This is crazy. I love it. Next up, we have the Plane Watcher, and this is a medium celestial, lawful neutral, so there is some role-playing opportunities there. 136 hit points and a challenge rating 10. They have abilities such as a Radiant Lasso, Innervating Blast, Planner Ultimatum, Reel, Wordbound, Planebound, Planner Sense. This looks like some type of a Plane Watcher. I'm going to be honest, I haven't read it yet, but it looks like we could do an entire 10-minute video on the Plane Watcher and all of their abilities. So if you're looking for some type of eldritch monster celestial that is in that area of the challenge rating 10, I think the Plane Watcher has your bag. Next up, we have the Quicksilver Siege Orb. This silver sphere, polished to a mirror-like sheen, bobs gently in the air for a moment before suddenly flattening out into a round serrated blade. What in the world is going on with this thing? We have 82 hit points. This is a challenge rating 5 monster. And again, look at all of those abilities. Bludgeoning Bounce, Construct Nature, Flyby, Immutable Form, Observant, Slippery. It's got multi-attack with Disc Blade, Slam, Slashing Run, and Shape Quicksilver. Like the Plane Watcher that we just discussed, this one would probably take an entire video to dig into. But an interesting Siege Orb, a small construct that you can find in the Tome of Beasts. Next up is the Strife, small childlike creature with purple skin and an overly large mouth, hovers in the shadows in the alleyway behind the tavern, giggling with delight as it watches fights break out. Okay, so what in the world's going on here? The Strife, a small chaotic evil. Oh yeah, there we go. Yep, very, very evil fayish looking. It has a mimicry where it can mimic human voices. Delight. When a creature within 30 feet of the Strife takes psychic damage, the Strife gains 5 temporary hit points or gains advantage on the next attack roll it makes. That is interesting. This is a challenge rating 3 monster. It actually has 60 hit points. That's quite a bit for a small fae. We've got a Salve Discord, we've got invisibility, and induced doubt. If a creature misses the Strife with an attack, the Strife can cause the attacker to doubt itself. The attacker must succeed on a wisdom saving throw each time it makes an attack roll or saving throw before the end of its next turn. It must roll a d4 and subtract the number rolled from the attack roll. I like those type of abilities. It's good to give monsters reactions, and especially something like this that's going to give someone that misses kind of like a Bane effect with that d4 minus. So, interesting monster. I will probably end up using this at some point. I really dig this one. Next up, we have Nearly Headless Nick from Harry Potter. We have the Vengeful Spirit. The ghostly humanoid floats through the air, its head hovering several inches above its severed neck. So another undead added to the Tome of Beasts. We have this medium-sized undead. It has 54 hit points. It's a challenge rating 4 monster, and it has a neat little package of abilities. Angry Defiance, where it gets to add its charisma modifier to armor class. Incorporeal Movement, which is very ghost-like, where they can move through objects or creatures. Of course, Undead Nature, and we have Essence of Rage. Let's take a look at this. Oh, never mind. If I'm going to spend some time, I'm going to look at Decapitation. Once per day, the Vengeful Spirit makes a quick cutting gesture at one creature it can see within 30 feet of it that has a head and that is below half its hit point maximum. The target must make a DC 14 Constitution saving throw, taking 28 slashing damage on a failed save or half as much on a successful one. A target that fails the saving throw also has one of its heads cut off. The creature dies if it can't survive without the lost head. And then finally, we have the Volguloth. What at first appears to be a humanoid wearing voluminous robes and is a thin, fiendish figure whose skin drapes about its form like a wet shroud. Let's see what this dude looks like. Medium fiend, neutral evil. Okay, there it is. It looks like one of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in undead or fiend form. Challenge rating 4 monster, 78 hit points, 14 armor class. Has the glide ability, so with all that draping skin, it can flap it out and glide down somewhere. Oh my goodness. Draping skin that can expand while falling to slow its rate to a descent. Yep, so kind of like a feather falling ability, and it can move while it's gliding. That's disgusting. Awesome. It has a multi-attack. It's got Enshroud. The Volguloth enshrouds a medium or smaller target grappled by it, and the enshrouded target is blinded, restrained, and unable to breathe or speak until the grapple ends. And so it just takes all of that skin and wraps you up like a burrito. Fantastic. That is the Volguloth. And that is going to do it for the new monsters that you're going to find in Kobold Press's 2023 revised edition of the Tome of Beasts 1. Let me know what you thought of these monsters. Which one are you excited about to try in your game? And which one is just absolutely terrifying that you never want to meet as a player? Leave a comment below. So that is my review of Tome of Beasts 1 2023 edition by Kobold Press. Now this is a reprint of the original Tome of Beasts that was released for 5th edition in 2016. So you may be wondering if this book is for you. Should you pick up this book? Well, if you don't already own the original, then it is definitely a no-brainer. Pick this book up. The Kobold Press monsters are some of the funnest monsters I have run in my game. I have all of the monster books. I have Tome of Beasts 1, 2, 3, and the Creature Codex. And I would highly encourage anyone that is serious about being a game master or dungeon master for 5th edition or for Tales of the Valiant to have those in your collection. They're just so much fun to run. So I guess the main question is, if you already own the original Tome of Beasts like I do, is it worth it to pick it up? Should you spend the money to add this to your collection? Now this is totally going to be up to you and how you are as a game master or a dungeon master for 5th edition or for Tales of the Valiant. If you are completely satisfied with the original Tome of Beasts, or you don't use it as often as you thought you would, then I would say no. Go ahead and keep your original copy. The monsters are still good. They're a lot of fun. You can adjust them as needed, and you can just go from there. The 2023 revision isn't a must-have, but it is a nice to have. With that in mind, let's take a look at the pricing, and maybe that would sway your decision one way or the other. Now, there are some bundles with the PDF, but let's just take a look at the book by itself. We have Tome of Beasts 1 limited edition. For those of you that like to collect and get those alternate arts, you're looking at about $80 US. The normal hardcover is going to run you about $60, and they also have a pocket edition for $30. And the PDF by itself is going to be $30. So if those are in your price range, this might be something that you want to upgrade to. For myself, I'm going to hold on to the original for now, but I am planning on upgrading this to the 2023 edition at some point. Now, it's not going to be a rush out and get it right away type of a thing for me, although I am eyeballing that limited edition, but it is something that will eventually be in my collection. And when I usually do something like this, what I'll do with my original is I'm probably going to pass this on to another game master or dungeon master that doesn't have any of the books. And if I want to introduce them to something like Tome of Beasts, then I'll probably pass this down to the next generation game master. So that is my review of the revised 2023 edition of Tome of Beasts 1. So now I'm curious what your thoughts on this book are. If you already own the original, are you planning on upgrading to the revised, or are you going to stick with the original? And if you don't own this book, are you going to pick it up? Be sure to leave a comment below and let me know what your thoughts are. Also, if you would like to see a future live stream or more videos covering the monsters or comparing the monsters from the old version to the new version, let me know that in the comment section as well. And I'll also put all of the links to the Kobold Press articles and the stuff that I covered here in the description below. Thank you very much for watching, and on to the next.